What if we have a set of data which is logically related to each other? Then we are calling that as what? Database. So database is capable of managing large amount of data. Simultaneously, we are accessing the same content at the same time. That is not possible in the file system. In order to make a more efficient usage of the database management system, there we have a designer and implementation of a tool. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. Welcome back to the session 1 of chapter 1 in the unit 3 of B.Ca's first semester, subject called Fundamentals of Computers. I'm Rohini T.S., Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. In the unit 3 of the first chapter, there you are going to learn about the introduction to database management system. So here you can see that of our today's agenda. So today you are going to learn what do you mean by database and what do you mean by database management system. In short, that is DBMS. First you will get to know what is data, then what is database, then what is DBMS or a database management system, and then how can we do the comparison between this file system and DBMS, and also you will be learning what are the application of a DBMS system we have. Along with that, at last I will be discussing regarding the person or a people one who are associated with a DBMS approach. So that will be the last topic of our today's session. Let me get into it. First, we'll see what do you mean by database. So before that, you all know that what is data, isn't it? Data is what? That can be anything. Moreover, it is a raw fact that needs to be processed. So as of now, what is that? It is just a raw fact that needs to be processed. For example, you can take any image, audio, video before the processing. For example, whenever I'm taking a picture, that is data. And if I'm doing a cropping and if I'm applying some filters, all those are what? Processing. Once it got processed, after that, it will be considered as what? Information. There will be more informative things will be there other than data. Fine. Then, what if we have a set of data which is logically related to each other? Then we are calling that as what? Database. You just take the example of your closet, or you can take the example of your wardrobe or cupboard. So there you are going to keep the clothes, right? So there, if it is organized in a proper manner, for example, if you are keeping it, your t-shirts one side, jeans one side, and your kurtas at one side. So if that is in some organized manner, then it will be easy to retrieve, or it is easy to modify to do any of the tasks, isn't it? Then, are we going to keep the fruits and vegetables in the wardrobe or in the closet? No, right? That means what? We are storing a logically related data. So one data to another data, there should be some relationship. Then we can call that kind of data which is all together as a database. So here database is a collection of interrelated data which is used to retrieve, insert and delete the data efficiently. This database will going to allow us in order to do the retrieve. That means we are fetching the data from there and we are also inserting some data. There we are going to delete the data with data efficiency. And here, a database is a collection of data which is stored usually in the electronic form. It will be in the electronic form and it is designed so that it is easy to store and access the information. So you can take the example of college database. If it is a college database, then it comprises of information regarding the staff, admin, student and faculty details, and overall the teaching and non-teaching staff, and what are the courses offered. Every data will going to be stored there. Fine. That's all regarding what? Database. And also here you need to think, why do we require this database? What is its use? What are the benefits that we can get with the help of this database? So mainly what is it? Manages the large amount of data. So database is capable of managing large amount of data. It is mainly will going to hold massive amount of data. And then accurate, whatever the data we have in a database, it is not going to have a inconsistent data, or it is not wrong data. It will be more accurate and consistent in nature. So that you can see here, it is going to guarantee to be correct in all the cases or most of the cases. Information which is available in the database is somehow accurate and it is correct. What is the next point? That is easy to update data. So for example, as of now I have certain data, I wanted to add some more data, but there is no difficulty of adding or modifying the content of existing database. So in a database, it is very easy in order to update the data by making use of DML, data manipulation language, or DML languages. And also here you can see that it will going to provide a security of data. So why? Because unauthorized access is not allowed in the database. It is going to allow only authenticated users. And also there will be a data integrity. Data integrity in the sense what? Whatever the data that we are storing in a database should be accurate and consistent in a database. Then only it is going to allow. That is what it makes the data integrity feature. Then easy to research data. Though it is massive in size, but it is going to provide some of the mechanism in order to research the data very easily. So these are the very important characteristics of database which make it more efficient and effective way of storing a large amount of interrelated data. Fine. Next, here you can see that database management system. Don't get confused. Database is different. Database management system is different. So database is what? Logically interrelated data. That is a collection of logically interrelated data. So in order to manage all those data, I require one intelligent software. Then we are calling that software as what? DBMS, or a database management system. So it's a collection of program, or it is a software for storing and retrieving the user's data while considering the appropriate security measures. There will be more security. Unauthorized access is not at all allowed in the database management system. It is a software which is allowing us to retrieve the data and information which is logically stored in the database. And also it consists of group of programs which manipulate the database. So here we can communicate to a database by making use of this DBMS. And also this going to accept the request for data from an application and instruct the operating system to provide a specific data. So this DBMS is accepting the data from the user. That means our query will going to be accepted by the DBMS and conversion will going to be takes place. That means processing of that data will be takes place with the help of application software, and at last it is going to provide a appropriate information. And also this will going to help the users and other third-party software to store and retrieve the data of database. Mainly what it is then? It is a collection of program which enables its user to access a database. We can manipulate it and also we can report or represent the resultant or output of data. That is what the DBMS is different and database is different. Even data is also different. Data, database, then DBMS or a database management system. Moreover, it is a software. In order to manage the database, we have this DBMS. And also mainly it includes the user of database and other application program. So this DBMS consists of user. User should be there in order to access its content. And also we have application programs. Through this application program, we are accessing the content of database. So next we'll see how the database management system is more efficient and effective than the file system. So here we need to make a comparison between the file system and database management system. We'll see the differences of each, then I will get to know why we are calling this DBMS as an efficient way of storing our data or retrieving our data and information. So here we have a difference between the file system versus DBMS. So here we have a file system. This side is all related to DBMS. This file system is a software that manages and organizes the file in storage medium. So how it is going to be storing the data in the storage medium, and it controls how data is stored and retrieved. But what about this DBMS? So it's a software application or an application software. Mainly it is used for accessing, creating and managing the databases. It is managing the data and it is managing the databases. Next, what we have in the file system, it provides the details of data representation and storage of data. So here you can see all the details of our data, whatever we have in a file system. But there is a data abstraction. That means abstract view of a data is there in the DBMS. So you all know how to use washing machine, how to use WhatsApp. But do we exactly know how it is working internally? No, right? That is what data abstraction, which needs to be reached to the user, which should be hidden from the user. That is going to take place in the DBMS, that is abstract view of data. Storing and retrieving of data can't be done efficiently in a file system. So why? Because storing and retrieving of data is taking more time and it is not a efficient way of storing and retrieving of data. But in the DBMS, it is be very efficient in order to use there as a wide variety of method in order to store and retrieve the data. For storing and retrieving of data is not at all a problem for DBMS, and also it does not offer the data recovery process. So once it lost, we won't get it back, but that is not in the case of DBMS. There we have a backup recovery for the data in DBMS. In the file system, it does not have any crash recovery mechanism. If something goes wrong and if the computer fails, hardware or software component get failed, then you won't get the data back. But here in the DBMS, it is going to provide a crash recovery mechanism. That is one of the important difference, and it protecting a file is very difficult. So here we don't have a authorization or less security we can expect in the file system, but in the DBMS it is going to offer a good protection mechanism for the data and information which we have in a database. And in the file management system, the redundancy of data is greater, so it won't able to get to know the duplicate data. Redundancy is what? Duplicate data. But in the DBMS, redundancy of data is very low in the DBMS system. It won't allow the same data in a same table of a same database, so that we can reduce the duplicacy in the DBMS but not in the file system. Next, data inconsistency is higher. Consistency of data is very less in the file system, but the inconsistency is low. If you are writing the answer like what? Consistency is low and consistency is high, and then inconsistency is high and inconsistency is low in the database management system. Then the file system offer lesser security, but here you can expect more security or high security in the DBMS. Then file system allows you to store the data and isolated data files and entity. All can be clubbed together in the file system, but here it stores the data as well as defined constraint and interrelation. Then what is the difference? Not provides support for complicated transaction. We can't do the complicated transaction by making use of this file system, but it is easy to implement the complicated transaction by having a ACID properties. By having a ACID properties in the DBMS. Fine. What is the next difference we have? The centralization process is hard in file management system. So decentralization is more in this file system, but in the DBMS, centralization is very easy to achieve in the DBMS system. Then it does not offer backup and recovery of data. It is lost. If it is lost, then we can't get it back, but we can get it back in the DBMS, so that is going to provide a backup and recovery tools. And then there is no efficient query processing in the file system. But here we have a very efficient way of having a easily query data. That means we can ask the question, we can give our requirement through the help of this query, but that is not possible in the file system. And the system does not offer concurrency. Concurrency in the sense what? Simultaneously we are accessing the same content at the same time. That is not possible in the file system, but it can be possible in the DBMS. So it is going to provide a concurrency facility, and also we have certain concurrency control mechanism. With the help of that, we can have a concurrent execution mechanism in the DBMS, but not in the file system. This is what made the difference between the file system and DBMS. So we can say that this DBMS will going to play a very important role than this file system. I hope you all understood regarding this difference between the file system and DBMS. Fine. Next, we'll see what are the application we have in the DBMS system. Now I got to know DBMS is what, or it's a software which is controlling and coordinating all the activities of a database. Then where and all can we have this database management system? In the sector of banking, in order to maintain the details of staffs or to maintain the details of transaction or even the customer loans applied and loan sanctioned, every details we have to store. So can we use the DBMS in the tea stall or normal tea stall which is taking 10 to 20 number of teas per day? No, right? Why? Because whenever we are using a database or DBMS, then we have to deal with a large number of data, and the data should be rapidly changing. Only in that situation the usage of DBMS is more effective and efficient. And in the sector of water meter billing, how much water is used per unit in a particular house and particular area. Everything can be calculated with the help of this DBMS. And also rail and airlines for the purpose of train and aeroplanes departure time, arrival time, and details about the transaction happen in between, and the details about each customer, their details, everything should be stored in a logical manner. For that also we require this DBMS. And schools and colleges. So in the sector of colleges, as you all know that university that has to include all the courses, and the colleges comes under university, and also details about the faculty, student, courses offered, every detail should be stored. And credit card transaction, what are the transaction takes place in a particular month, and what is the debit, what is the credit, how many transaction happened, and what is the customer name, who are all taken a credit card and who are all use the credit card for that particular month, what is the due date, what is the extra payment, everything should be calculated and should be maintained properly. For that we require this DBMS. And for the purpose of finance and sales, in order to maintain the intakes and outwards of the materials of a sales, there also we require this DBMS system. And telecommunication, so in the telecom, the number of calls made, number of messages sent, received, and balance data pack, and when it is due, every data. For example, whenever you are using a data pack, you are going to get a message like 50% alert, 90% alert. Who is keep on tracking all those things? Is any person is behind that? No, that's all our what? Automated one. That is all maintained with the help of this DBMS. And also we have a manufacturing that comes under sale itself, and human resource. It can be in any of the offices where they are storing a data of their employees, staff, and teaching, non-teaching staffs, or any other staffs with respect to certain groups. So all these are the applications, and some more we have along with this. So those are the application of DBMS approach. So now we got to know what are the applications of database management system we have. Then we'll see now what are the or who are the database management systems user. So who are the database user? One who are getting the benefit from database are called database users. So in that, very important, first we have a database administrator. So if we have a database, if we are dealing with a massive data and large amount of interrelated data, then management and controlling and coordinating all the activities of database should be taken care by particular person. Then we are calling them as a database administrator. So that is a person, one who is going to has a central control over both data and application. They can control the data as well as the application. And some of the responsibilities of DBA include, DBA in the sense what? Database administrator. What and all they are going to do? So they authorization access, who all can access and who do not access the database, and also schema definition, how the database should be, what are the data types it is going to allow, and then what are the constraints, what are a set of rules and regulation to be followed whenever we are inserting a data. So all those detail will be maintained and what controlled by this DBA. Along with that, modification of that data. So you are going to get your university result. Are you all able to modify that? No, right? You can just take a screenshot, or you can just download it, but physically you can't change the data, or logically you can't change the data. That is what the modification and controlling and updating of all those things can be done only by this database administrator, not by everybody. And then new software installation, in order to have security and in order to improve the security enforcement and administration. So there also we require this database administrator, or in short it is a DBA. So these are the activities or responsibilities of this database administrator. So we got to know database administrator. Only database administrator is enough in order to manage the database? No, we also require system analyst. Only is DBA is enough for our database? No, right? We also require system analyst. Why this analysis is required? If I don't know the requirement of a users or end user or overall getting benefit, if we don't know their requirement, then we are not at all able to develop or design the database. So in order to take the requirement, or in order to determine the requirement of an end user, then in order to create a solution for their business need, and we have to focus on the non-technical and technical aspects. So in order to analyze in all the perspective of a database, on the perspective of user, we require this system analyst. They are just going to analyze analyze what are the requirement of end user, what kind of database they are looking for, whether they want it for sales, whether they want it for college and school sector, whether they are wanting it for only education purpose. So by keeping that end user's perspective in mind, this analyst will going to analyze in all the degree of database. Next we have a application programmer. Now we got a analyst. That analyst will going to analyze the system, and in order to design that, we also have a designer. Once it got designed, that needs to be converted into some programming, so then only computer can understand. For that we have a application programmer. So application programmer users who are responsible for developing the application programs or user interface, how the user can interact and what must be the software. So by making use of some of the programming languages or high level programming languages like Java, .NET, PHP, by making use of all these languages, they are just going to build a software in order to communicate to the database. So for that reason, we require this application programmer. Fine. Next, what we have? Database designer. So, for example, if you wanted to build a building, you know what means you have a site or you have a place, you have all the money and all, but you need a planner, you need a designer. So you have to take a blueprint, right? For that purpose, we have a database designer here. I know how to do the responsibility of controlling, coordinating all the activities. If I don't know the requirement of user, then we can't do anything. For that, we have a system analyst. Once the analysis is done, that should be designed as per the perspective of giving a solution to the end user. Then that designing will going to take place with the help of this database designer. So, are responsible for identifying the data to be stored in the database, for choosing the structures to represent and to store the data, how the structure must be, what are the data type that they have to use, and what is its constraint. In order to analyze all those things, in order to design all those things, we have this database designer. After this, who is going to get the benefit then? That's all regarding end user or a database user. So here, users are those who are interact with the database in order to query and update the database and to generate the reports. So here, what and all you have to analyze? First, we have a database. We have a plan for a database, to create a database. So this system analyst will going to analyze everything. What are the requirement? After taking the requirement of a user by the analyst, then designer we have, that designer will going to do the designing part. So they will get to know what must be the structure of a database, how the data should be stored. Designer will going to do all those things. Once it got designed, then that design part will be converted into some programming languages. Then we require the programmer. Fine. So in order to control all these activities, we have a database administrator or DBA. That person is going to control and coordinate all the activities which is done by the analyst, designer and even programmer. Once it got built, then who is going to use all these things? That will be by the end user. End user will going to use this database in order to satisfy their requirement. Even this DBA is also responsible for who can access that content and who should not access those content. So this is how the database users look like, or the people who is associated with a database. So in the end user, here also we have 4 types: casual end user, naive or parametric end user, sophisticated end user, and we have a standalone end user. So we'll see each type one by one. If it is casual end user, they are going to access the database occasionally, but for each time the requirement is different. Sometime I may go for book my show. At the time, what is my requirement? I wanted to book for a show, and I will go for what? Airlines booking. At the time, my requirement is for what? Booking of airlines, and I will go with a railway reservation by using IRCTC. At the time, my requirement is different. We are calling as what? Casual end users. We are using it occasionally, but whenever we are using, our requirement could be different. Next, what we have? Naive or parametric user. So these are the makeup of a large section of the end user population. Why? Because naive or parametric end users are going to use a database regularly. They are going to do the same task, same database operation will be done by the naive or parametric users, and they are going to have a previously well-defined function in the form of canned transaction. We call that as a canned transaction against the database. So already they have a set of transaction or a predefined well-organized transaction. Only that transaction should be takes place. If I am using a reservation system, then I can call me as a casual end user. But those are all operating that reservation system will be considered as what? Naive or parametric user. You can take the example of bank tellers or ATM machine operators, and we have a reservation clerk. So they are all doing the same task with the same operation every day. So then we are calling that kind of users as what? Naive or parametric end user. Then what about this sophisticated user? They have thorough knowledge about the database. They know what are the in and out of every database. Then we call them as what? Sophisticated end user. So that include business analyst, scientist will be there, and also we have engineers, and also that include programmers. So all they know the thoroughly familiar with the system capabilities. So many of them will going to use this sophisticated. In order to be a sophisticated end user, they must have a knowledge regarding the database, and they are going to use many use tools in the form of software packages that work closely with a stored database. But being an end user, being a parametric or casual end user, we are not able to access the stored database, but that can be accessed by this sophisticated end user. Fine. At last, what we have? Standalone end user. So these are all the person, one who is going to maintain the database by making use of ready to use package application. Then what is the example? Tax program user, that they are going to create their own internal database. And also you have Google Photos, Google Drives. So all whenever we are using those database, then we become standalone database. And also here example is user, one who is going to maintain an address book. So already they have a set of packaged application. By making use of that, they are getting a benefit. So these are all the people associated with a database. Then who are all working behind the screen? Then we have a DBMS system designers and implementer. They are going to design and implement the DBMS modules and their interfaces of a software package. How the interface should be, how user can use it. So they are working behind the screen. And also we have a tool developers. In order to make a more efficient usage of the database management system, there we have a designer and implementation of a tool will be done by this tool developers. And also we have operators and maintenance personnel. One who is taking care regularly of the DBMS will be considered as what? Maintenance personnel. They are responsible for running and maintenance or efficient usage of this DBMS. So these are all the people or a set of personnel who are all going to help us in order to get the benefit of this database management system. I hope you all understood my today's session. In our coming session, we're going to see about the SQL. We have a data, we have a database, we have a DBMS. Then how can I talk to DBMS? For that we require a query language. Then that query language standard is what? Structured query language. That is what you will be learning in my coming session. Let me meet you there. Until that, keep learning, keep on growing. Thank you.